that leads me into my next game of the week, which is the other AFC North matchup that happened this week, which had repercussions following it, which we will definitely circle on in just a moment. I know you wanted to talk about it at the top of the segment, but we're going to talk about it here. That's why I cut you off when I did earlier. I knew it was a game that was coming up. So,
Yeah, that's why I didn't bring it up.
yep, that's fair. That's fair.
It's like,
You're a smart man. We're on the same page, telepathically. So we're looking at the Browns beating the Steelers 13-10. You and I both predicted that the Steelers were going to win. You predicted 31-10 Steelers. I predicted 24-0 Steelers. And talk about an ugly game. It was a rough game to watch. You know,
yeah, 106 passing yards, 3.8 average, but they did killer on the ground. 172 yards. Jalen Warren,
yeah,
9 carries, 129 yards, and a tutty.
yep. And
So
people are,
fantasy wise, he did great.
yeah, he had a field day. Don't discount that he
Mm-hmm.
had 3 receptions out of the backfield for 16 yards as well. So, right there
Yep.
that bumps him up to what, 135 yards total or 145 yards total. So you're looking at
Yeah,
what,
145.
23.5 points. So Jalen Warren has definitely earned. I think that you can comfortably start him RB2 as a staple moving forward. People bash on Najee. Here's the thing with Najee. You got to realize how the Steelers are utilizing him. They're utilizing him as a power runner. He's there to grind down defenses. He's there to make it so Jalen Warren has an easier time against these defenses. You watch the first quarter and a half, they didn't give Jalen the ball at all. Like it was just Najee, just feeding Najee the ball
Mm-hmm.
and just letting him grind down the defense. And that's exactly what he was doing. The biggest thing for me during the Steelers game when I was watching it live was, they just started passing the ball nonstop. And it was like on these weird ass routes that, were just idiotic. Which that leads into Matt Canada getting fired.
Yeah, how you feeling? Because now they got the running backs coach as part
Yeah.
of the play calling
Yeah. So
as well, and I think it's like a interim offensive coordinator they got going on right now. If I
I've been
read that
waiting for
correctly
the
earlier.
official release today. Um, let's double check this. I don't know if they have announced the new offensive coordinator yet.
Mm,
It looks like. Let me double check. Faulkner is expected to take over as the interim offensive coordinator, and Sullivan, who has previous coordinator experience with the New York Giants and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, will handle the play calling.
okay.
So Randy Faulkner is who they're referencing.
Oh yeah, so Mike Sullivan and Eddie Faulkner.
Eddie, excuse me.
Oh wait, see, yeah, Eddie Faulkner is going to be the offensive coordinator, while the quarterback coach Mike Sullivan as the play caller.
Yep. And I mean, I said this a couple weeks ago when the Bills decided to move on from their OC, but like Ken Dorsey,
Mm-hmm.
was it was late in the season, and that's the biggest reason I didn't like the move. And honestly, I didn't think Ken Dorsey deserved to get the can either. He was doing things to get the offense yards. The Bills were ranked top 7 at worst in every position other than scoring, offensively. So like when you're looking at the stats like that and you're watching the Bills live, it's just like they're not finishing. And if you want to blame that on your OC, sure. But with the Matt Canada firing, I'm bittersweet about it because it's so late in the season. Like now, the Steelers have enough talent on offense where they could turn this thing around. They could go ahead and start cooking with gas if they get the right play calls. But
Right.
you have to imagine that at some point before they fired Matt Canada, just with how the Steelers operate, that he already allegedly wasn't calling the plays for the last few weeks. So like, what does this actually change for the Steelers? Was what's going on? Did they just need a change of scenery at the coaching position? Was that like what we're really thinking, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing for me is like Matt Canada was so big on, oh, I need to get my guy at quarterback. I need to get my guy at quarterback. Okay, so they got him as guy at quarterback and pushed out Ben Roethlisberger, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Okay, sure, he is at the twilight of his career, whatever. Okay, so then they go ahead and get the pieces that he needs over 2 seasons, and then he comes out this season. Well, my offense isn't built to score from behind. Okay, what about this game? You weren't behind all game. You were tied
No.
till there's 2 seconds left. And that leads me into talking about Cleveland's offensive production this week. Dorian Thompson looked horrible. He got the win, but he didn't look great.
Got a lucky win.
Yep. They won in spite of him. 24 for 43 on 165 yards, averaging 3.8 yards per pass and a pick. The Steelers defense was doing a good job getting in his face and now allowing him to get the ball down the field. They were holding on tight. They didn't allow over 100 yards rushing, and Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, we have seen tear up defenses this season. They shut him down other than letting Jerome Ford get the singular touchdown that the Browns scored that day. And, like overall, the defense played great for the Steelers. Njoku had another stellar game. Do you think Njoku is relevant in top 5 tight end conversation for the rest of the season?
Mm. I want to say I think he's good and he's worth starting most weeks, but I don't know if I say top 5. Maybe I'm kind of flipping back between 5 and 6 with him.
Yeah,
Put
that's
him
kind of
at
where
5
I'm
or
at. I'm
6.
kind of thinking like 4 to 7.
I think you can comfortably start him,
Yep.
and you don't really have a problem there because he's going to get you points, he's going to get you work, and every once in a while he'll get you a touchdown.
Yep.
Right. So he'll get his 5 to 6 catches a game, probably 50 to 60 yards. Right there, that's 10 points. So if he gets that touchdown, that's 16, 17 points right there.
Yep.
And you're happy with that.
Yeah.
Happy with 10 points.
Your basement is 10 points at tight end, and your ceiling is like 20 points. Like that's Kelsey like numbers. Realistically.
I think he's a comfortable start.
I agree.
But I could also understand you not starting him at times as well. I wouldn't argue that.
Yeah. I like him a lot. We've seen the connection between him and Dorian Thompson. Dorian Thompson has a hot hand. So he's gonna get a lot of targets just because he got 15 targets this game. Did you know that?
Yeah.
He dropped 2 of those too, by the way. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, comfortably start him.
Yeah.
If this game's anything to go off of, he's going to get work. Now he's not going to get 15 targets every game. That'd just be insane to think. I think his floor is reasonably like 8 targets.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets 10 plus targets.
Range.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets 10 targets consistently from this game out. I think that there will only be one game he doesn't get a lot of targets on. And, we started talking about the AFC North standings. The Browns move up to second place. They're only half a game behind the Ravens at this point. They're 7-3. Steelers are 6-4. The remainder of their schedule goes like this: Broncos, Rams, Jaguars, Bears, Texans, Jets, Bengals.
Oof. So Broncos might be where the Broncos been playing. That's probably going to be a loss. Jags, Texans, also probably a loss. So they might only get 3 of the next 6 wins.
Yeah.
Or win 3 of the next 6 games.
I could see that.
I think that's very reasonable. Very possible.
And what about on the Steelers side of the ball? Do you think this offensive coordinator change will change anything?
I don't know, man. It really depends. I mean, I think it's kind of too early to tell. I think it potentially does. And hopefully the change will allow the Steelers to open up the playbook a lot more than what they seem to be doing. Because like when we saw Kenny just call plays, or we saw the Steelers perform a lot better. Now, in recent weeks, the Steelers were performing I think better on offense, but still not to their potential where they could be with the personnel that they have on the offensive side of the ball, especially. So that does kind of give merit to, well, maybe someone else was calling the plays, kind of thing. It wasn't Matt Canada or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for the Steelers because even though I don't like the Steelers, they still got so much potential on that offense that they could be a very, very good football team.
Yeah. 110%. The Steelers remaining
It's just
schedule.
this next, yeah,
Good.
this next game for the Steelers is going to tell you a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
I think.
I think Matt Canada's firing is going to be more of a rally point than necessarily a actual change. You know, the players have been
Yeah.
pretty much going out in the media all season and saying fire Matt Canada without saying fire Matt Canada. Najee
Mm-hmm.
in his post game interview this week said, "I'm tired of this shit." You know,
Yeah.
George Pickens has came out multiple times and said, "I'm tired of this shit. Free me." I don't know if you remember that Instagram drama, but he's saying, "Free me."
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Deontay Johnson, who has proven multiple times throughout the season that he is the calm head in that wide receiver locker room, he came out and was like, "This ain't working." And when you got your leader of your wide receiver room, you know, possibly you could argue Deontay Johnson is the leader of that offense, you know, more so than Kenny. Because, you know, Kenny can't say that. Kenny just can't. You know, you kind of get the real look inside the locker room with a guy like Deontay Johnson, who's like that subtle leader, who's leading that skill group, you know, and he's saying, "I'm tired of this." And following that, the next day, Matt Canada got fired. Um,
Yeah. When you lose your guys, when you lose that locker room, especially as a coach, it's so hard to do anything,
mhm.
right? It's so hard to get that player's trust and acceptance back. So when he lost it, and probably lost it a couple years ago, they just didn't want to make a change yet. But one thing I did like is during Mike Tomlin's press conference about it, he kind of just took all the blame for the not really all the blame, but he took all the responsibility for firing and said it was my decision and no one else's. Kind of shielding anyone else from potentially blame if someone wanted to blame him for firing Matt Canada or get mad about it, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, because the original report came out, and the original report said that Art Rooney fired Matt Canada, which a lot of people are
Hmm.
like, "Oh, you know, okay." They had to go up to the owner. And what I think happened was Art Rooney pulled Tomlin aside and said a few weeks ago, I think, you know, probably after that Jags loss, you know, he probably pulled him aside and said, "Listen, we have we have a Super Bowl caliber team, talent wise. You know, the offense might not be there yet, but that defense is Super Bowl caliber. And
Yeah, defense, but not offense.
that offense is probably wild card caliber with the amount of talent they have on it, which that is enough to get you a ring. Like with the amount of talent on that team, you could get a ring with
We saw
this.
with the we saw with the Patriots with their threes in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
They had a Super Bowl caliber defense and a pretty good to like mediocre to pretty good offense.
yeah, and that's exactly where the Steelers are. You know, you have this offensive line that's starting to click, especially with the addition of Broderick Jones, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, finally getting him to start, and you got this defense that is just like locking up teams. You know, like you're holding teams under 20 points, you win. You win a lot. And every time the Steelers have held a team under 20 points, other than the first game against the Browns, they went up 22, but they scored 26 and got the win. And this past week,
Mm-hmm.
they've won every game that they kept their opponent at 20 points or less, and the Jags, which they only allowed them to score 20. So the Steelers defense has
Yeah.
only allowed a team to score more than 20 points 3 times this season, and 2 of them resulting in their 4 losses. You know,
So, fun fact that I saw when I was just reading before the pod was that the NFL is on track to score the lowest amount of points since like 2009 combined.
mm-hmm.
Because right now teams are averaging combined like 43.8 or something like that.
Yeah,
43.9. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
yeah, and you know, it just seems like it's been a low scoring season, and I think a big thing with that is, you know, like you had the AFC North that like you have 4 great defenses in one division, and that's just the AFC North. You got the Lions, who have a great defense. You have the 49ers, who have a great defense. You have the Eagles, who have a great defense. You know, like, we're talking about,
The
like,
Bulldogs have a great defense.
the Philadelphia Bulldogs have a great defense. um, but no, actually, you know, we're seeing a wave of defenses that are elite all at the same time, and I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes the standard, because you can't just check down, and bing, 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 and win games anymore. You know, like, you can't rely on your quarterback to win you games anymore. This is playing almost like 90s football, where it's like 90s and prior football, I should say. You know,
Right.
you can't rely on just a quarterback to get you wins anymore. You know, there's teams that are like the Jets that are a quarterback away from being a great team. But, you know, just like a team like the Bears might be just a middle linebacker away from having a great defense, or, you know, the Raiders just being a good cornerback away from having a great defense.
So real quick, what do you think the odds are that the AFC North performs like this next year?
Extremely high.
Is like the best, you think, like higher than 70%?
Yeah,
High or
I think
higher?
it's like 90%.
Okay.
Because here's the thing, like,
I could see that.
most of these contracts are staying in place. None of these guys are moving. You're going to keep almost the same rosters and just improve them this all season. You know, you're just improving these teams because no one's going anywhere. You don't got to worry about Lamar's contract yet. You don't got to worry about Joe Burrows. You don't got to worry about Deshaun Watson. You know, and Deshaun Watson's starting to finally cook up with, you know, playing good, and he is out for the season the next game. So, you know, like, if Deshaun Watson's able to play like remotely like that throughout most of the games next season, the Browns are going to be a threat. The Ravens, obviously a threat. Joe Burrow coming back, that makes the Bengals a threat, you know, and then the Steelers, you know, being the Steelers and just refusing to go under 500 for some reason and not make the playoffs and keep on getting mid-round draft picks is just going to happen. So, you know, yeah, I think, you know, the biggest drop off this following season for a team is going to be the Steelers. I think the Steelers, unless their offense just greatly improves over the offseason, because, you know, they got guys like Cam Hayward that are starting to get up there in age, but they got Keanu Benton already to replace him, who's been playing very stellar as a rookie. You know, like, that's the thing that you got to look at, is like, how much depth do they have? And each one of these teams have good depth. Like, you know, the Browns quietly got Dawan Jones from Ohio State this past season in the draft, and they got him in the 4th round. He started this week against TJ Watt and kept him locked up, you know, took care of it. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, how these teams are all built, like, they're going to be good for the next 3 to 5 seasons, and they're all going to be threats playoff wise
for the next 3 to 5 seasons.
Yeah, and
that's kind of how I was feeling about it. And I'm kind of happy because it's going to make things interesting, especially towards the end of this season.
Yeah,
because like for the next, it's very possible over the next, you know, 2-3 seasons, especially, that potentially all 4 teams are in the playoffs.
Yep.
And to me, that's just so fun and also funny at the same time.
Yeah,
I love it.